All right. Continuing on with the classes before I get back into character creation and everything. So I'm going to go through the rest of the classes. So now I'm pulling out from the 2024 updated version of the Player's Handbook. And this week I'm going to talk about the Druid, pretty much the other divine spellcaster, in a sense, the sister or brother's divine spellcaster to cleric. Cleric usually is traditionally associated with like a church or a specific god and everything. So the druid is more geared towards like nature based and everything. So now, like the class, like for instance, the classes in the this 2024 version, at level 3 you get like a subclass. Now what's kind of cool about the druid in the sense like this is that you have like quite you have like 4 different ones like usual that you can like splinter off into quite different ways. And now most of it still follows the same kind of like breakdown with like the level advancement for pretty much all the classes. Like with the you start off with level 1. Like for instance, you get the spellcasting for ability for class features, the spellcasting, which is divine, geared more towards in a sense nature based. You get druidic, which is kind of a language of the druids, and of course you got your good old primal order. So you can, in a sense, dedicate yourself to being like a magician or a warden. So you get one extra cantrip from the druid spell list for magician. Warden, trained for battle. You gain proficiency with martial weapons and training with medium armor. So yeah, you can see right off the bat you can kind of splinter off into 2 different ways and everything with the druid. So, but what I've reading up on like the actual like subclasses. Now, of course, I'm going to kind of before I talk about subclasses, kind of circle back and go back about the abilities. Now, these follow the same kind of uh, progression that pretty much all classes do. So, like, you'll get the abilities at like every certain levels, like levels 1, 2, 3. You get ability score improvements at like 4, 8, going through like 4, 8 to 12, 16, and like yeah, last one at level 20 you get Archdruid. Now there's some levels that you don't get anything like level 9, 11, and 17. You don't get actual like class features, but you get like a proficiency bonus or you get more spells. And so like they have like the nice like little table that like in a sense describes all like the abilities and the progression and everything. So that's what's cool about like this is that like it has the progression table. Like okay, wherever you start level 1, this is what we start off. Level 3, like a recent group that well, the group that I'm in, we're still, as of this recording, still in kind of like our cyberpunk campaign. But we did Candlekeep Mystery. We started off at level 3, which pretty much lets us start off at like the uh, gets our subclasses. Now I was playing a cleric with the subclasses like a kind of like a cleric of the Tempest and everything. So like a store like a follow of God Tyr, and like I've worshipped this hero Thor and everything. So kind of like a Norse themed and everything for my cleric and everything. So we did like a one shot. We played probably like over the course of like a few months, every other week type of deal. So with the druid with that spell progression, it shows you, it breaks it down so that way however you want to start levels 1, 3. You could start running like a higher level campaign. Like you could start off with like the adventure book Vecna Eva Ruin. Start off level 10. You can just like pretty much start at level 10, go across, and then work yourself backwards or up the table. Okay, these are all the abilities we have now with the subclasses for like druid. So these videos I'm probably going to try and focus a lot on the subclasses, so to get kind of people more of like I feel like for the subclasses, and so like the people can start like seeing like the different options. So like the first one is like the circle of the land druid. So now they even break that down even further. So like that like, in a sense you're even more nature based. Like and of course it also all depends on like the type of like environment that you're going to be in. So like if you're in arid land, they do have like I'll keep tables here like that shows like a different like ideas for spell book for spells and everything that you can focus on. So they got spells like flame based spells for arid lands, like polar land, more ice-based temperate lands, they got more like a lightning bolt and like a shock and grasp and stuff like that. And of course, they also got like a tropical land, so you can flavor your druid into the type of environment that you're, in a sense, primary playing in and everything. So, and of course, with the subclasses, you get those abilities that's in the table and everything, and each subclass breaks it down. What level you get it at, it breaks down the abilities and be like, hey, look, like for instance, like the with this one at level 3 you get Land's Aid ability, and then it goes up to like a level 6 Natural Recovery, and it describes all those abilities that you get per level. Now what's kind of cool is that, like, if you're really into shapeshifting and everything, which is like pretty much one of the greatest concepts of like the druid and everything. So like right here you can see a wolf and the druid and everything, is that you can quite possibly go to the circle of the moon, which pretty much enhances your wild shape ability. So like you can go that way and pretty much be like the uh, in a sense the rogue or whatever in natural environments, becoming like wild shaping into bears, wolves, eagles, you name it, and everything. So the whole idea of the circle of the moon is to kind of like in a sense be able to do that and everything. So now the third subclass of the druid is Circle of the Sea. Now this one, as it says, Circle of the Sea, geared more towards like aquatic area, so like coastlines and like oceans, and so like you could, in a sense, think of like a subaquatic campaign. So like you could run like an Atlantis type of campaign setting, and this is where something like the Circle of the Sea would come in. Of course, you could also, like in a sense, like I said, coastal towns. Like if you think of like Forgotten Realms, places like that are along the actual sword coast, like the Neverwinter, Waterdeep. You could think like Baldur's Gate, maybe even Candlekeep and everything, like up and down the sword coast. You could do a druid of the like a Circle of the Sea, and you could be maybe like a privateer or even a pirate and everything in that, in like the coastal region, or like the actual like, sailing across the open water. And of course, like in R.A. Salvatore's books, like Drist, his main character, did go on an adventure like through pirating or whatever in one of the books. So I'd have to reread the books and everything. It's been several years, but like there is part of the adventure where Drist, and I'm pretty sure it's Katie Bree, that went on like in a sense like in a sea voyage or like a sea adventure type of deal. So this is kind of like the concept of like the Circle of the Sea and everything. So now the last one is like a Circle of the Stars, harness secrets hidden in constellations and everything. So for something like this, what comes to mind for me is like the elves, and of course like the artwork for this. You can see like almost something like akin to Avatar movie, and like a maybe astral projection too as well. So yeah, not only elves, but you could also maybe quite possibly with something like this get into the concept of the astral plane, the Spelljammer campaign, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. But like you can gear that towards uh, that kind of campaign setting with the Circle of the Stars. Of course, you could mix and match and everything, but like it would kind of be like a stretch. For instance, like if you're doing like a Circle of the Sea druid, to kind of bring them into like a forest setting, like a temperate landscape, and it would be kind of hard, vice versa, for like Circle of the Stars, bringing them into an aquatic area. So it all depends on like first and foremost, what kind of druid do you want to play. Now, for me, as I just lost power apparently. Anyway, with like for me, the uh, the Circle of the Moon would probably be like one that I would go more towards, because me personally, I would be hey, look, I like wild sheep, and I want to turn into a bear. I want to turn into a wolf. I want to be able to do this. I want to like turn into a bunch of different animals. So if I were to get into like a druid, I'd probably gear him towards more of a Circle of the Moon. Now, I would have to also work like I kind of would want to see like how my other players are creating their characters, how my DM would want to like how where they want to go. So like another one that I could quite possibly finagle would be the circle of land, and like breaking up into the different like areas, like the arid land, polar land, the temperate land, the tropical land, stuff like that. Like it depends on like how I would want to finagle that in like the campaign that we're quite running, and how I play that versus like in tandem with like the other characters that I'm playing alongside with and everything. So you can see with the like, four subclasses and everything how there's room for like all sorts of environments that you can play in and everything. So here, this video and these videos for classes is like is just kind of give people ideas like, okay, here's what's in this, especially about the subclasses. Here's ideas, and here's like maybe give my thoughts on how I would go about playing uh, this character. And now, of course, I've primarily played martial classes like the fighter and barbarians and monk and stuff. But like I did play a cleric, like I mentioned, and like I do think like if we do ever eventually circle back to D&D, starting getting to these other classes and seeing like, okay, uh, let me see if I can try this and finagle and let's see how I can play this and everything. So here's pretty much the druid class, and then getting into the subclasses, and of course going forward, I'll pretty much be using for the rest of the classes be using this to talk about like how you'd go for, and give ideas on how to play each type of class and everything.